What's up, guys? It's Alex the Magician here, back for a new Heroes 3 tier list video. So in this one, we're going to be following up our hardest JC break tier list with the easiest JC break tier list. So this is basically all of the creatures that did not make it to on the previous list, the ones that I felt were easy enough to deal with to have in the easy JC break tier list. So if you guys disagree with any of my placements, do let me know in the comments below and why you would rank something higher. Of course, this is opinion as any other tier list. So, but I am curious if you guys would rank any of these higher or lower than I do. And if you guys have ideas for other videos that you would like to see me do, I would love to hear that in the comments below, as well as I am always looking for new ideas for interesting videos that I can do. So if you give me a good idea, you may very well see a video that you would request. Alright, so without further ado, let's just get into this. So I'm going to talk about these and, just kind of discuss my reasoning for ranking them as I do, and I'll also tell you guys, how you would normally want to deal with these. Alright, so we're going to go from the bottom up. So basically, first we're going to be talking about the hardest of the easy breaks, and then we'll get easier as we go along. So the hardest one, or the last tier, I'm going to rank Scorpicors. I'm also going to rank Ancient Behemoths, Thunderbirds, Wyvern Monarchs, and Dread Knights. So all of these are here because they're because of mostly their abilities. Each of these have pretty nasty abilities that, if you're not careful, can definitely wreck your army. So I would say the worst one of the easy breaks are the Scorpicors. And that is because of their paralysis ability. They have a 20% chance to paralyze your stacks. And if you're not careful about that, even undead can also get paralyzed. So even if you're depending on animate, that can still really wreck you. So, and the other thing is that they're fast. So they do have speed 11, and you do want to slow these, and you want to try to avoid getting hit by them. You want to have, usually the way you want to do these is you want to have a power stack that's big enough to actually one-shot these guys, or, at least take retaliation and then one-shot, or, have a power stack of like some Cyclops that can do some damage, and then like, let's say Wyvern or Angels that can finish in one shot. You really don't want to take any retaliation hits or any hits in general on your power stacks from these guys, because they can just paralyze your power stack, and especially if you don't happen to have Cure or Dispel, that can really mess you up. So you just need to be careful about these. They're not that bad if you have a power stack that can one-shot them and if you can mass slow them. But if if you get unlucky with those paralysis, they can definitely be bad. Alright, as far as Ancient Behemoths go, they also have a nasty ability. It ignores 80% of your defense. Their speed is 9, so they're still going to be relatively fast even if you mass slow them. You do want to mass slow them. They also have 300 HP though, so you also do not want to get hit by these guys on your power stacks, because they will be doing a lot of damage. But if you can manage to kind of kite them around, if you can manage to avoid, getting hit, and just once again mass slow them and have a power stack that one-shots or gets close to one-shotting so you can take retaliation and hit them twice, then, they are manageable. So Thunderbirds, one of the 4 tier 5 units that can actually be your break. Only the upgraded kind can be your break. The rocks cannot be the break, only the Thunderbirds. The problem with Thunderbirds is that their numbers are going to be really large since they're tier 5 units. Sometimes you can fight 100 plus Thunderbirds. And as far as tier 5 units go, they are really beefy actually. They have 60 HP, which is almost as much as Wyvern, a tier 7 unit. They're just as fast. They have speed 11, so even if you slow them, they'll usually close the gap in 2 rounds because they're 2 hex units, and they'll have speed 6 when slowed, so they'll still close the gap. And they have that nasty Thunderbolt ability, which, if procs, can also really do some damage to you. So usually you need a pretty sizable army to kill these. Obviously you want to have mass slow still and try to take as few hits as possible on your power stacks. But yeah, you usually will need a strong enough hero and a strong enough army, like 30 Wyvern or something like that, that can be one-shotting the stacks and try to kite around the rest of the stacks so they don't hit you. All right, Wyvern Monarchs. So the bad thing about these is their speed, speed 11, and their poison ability. So the poison decreases the health of the poison unit. So if those proc, they can be really annoying. The good news about them is that, like the Scorpicors, they are some of the weaker tier 6 units. So they're not nearly as tanky as, for example, like the Dread Knights or something like that. But, you know, they can be challenging to deal with. So the way you want to deal with these is, once again, you know, to try to mass slow them and try to have a powerful enough stack to be one-shotting or close to one-shotting so that you don't take a lot of hits and you don't take too much damage on retaliation. All right, Dread Knights. So they are, you know, kind of the easiest of the hard, easy breaks, I would say. And the reason that I think that they're the easiest is because you don't have to worry about morale with them. Well, they can still be challenging. The problem with them is that they are the best tier 6 unit. They have high HP, really good stats, and they have that double damage ability that can be really nasty if you get hit by it. So, but the good thing is you don't have to worry about morale, as they are undead. And usually their numbers are not going to be quite as high because their AI value is pretty high. So again, the way you want to deal with these is usually mass slow, try to kite them around and try to take as few hits as possible, take retaliation from the stacks you're going to hit so that you don't take damage from them, and, you know, just try to pick off the stacks one by isolating them. All right, so the next tier, I'm going to have War Unicorns, the Sea Serpents, or Blue Tires, and Power Liches. So the War Unicorns, I have them here because of their abilities. They can blind you, and they are pretty beefy also as far as tier 6 units go. They're some of the stronger ones with high HP and good stats. And they also have the ability to blind you, and they also have the ability to potentially resist hostile spells. They have the resistance aura. So the way that the aura works is that the creatures next to the unicorn, not the unicorn itself, will have a chance to resist a hostile spell. So basically what that means is that when the unicorns are standing next to each other, they will have chances, you know, to resist your slow or whatever magic you're using on them. So that can be a little bit annoying, but usually it's the blind that is the most annoying about these. And if you don't have a strong enough army to actually one-shot them, that can be a problem. If you end up having to take retaliations, even from a one-stack, even if it doesn't do much damage, if it blinds you and you don't have cure, you know, it's kind of like getting paralyzed also. Right? So for that reason, they're here. Their speed is 9, so with mass slow, usually that's how you want to kill them. You want to use mass slow, and you want to try to isolate the stacks as much as possible, and you know, not get hit, not get blinded. All right. So as far as the Sea Serpents go, the problem with them is that there's going to be large numbers of them. So their value is relatively low, but their speed is still a 9, which is relatively fast. And if there's an upgraded stack, they can be challenging to deal with. And they are pretty tanky as far as tier 7 units go. So if you're facing a large number of them, you're going to need a relatively large number of units to be able to actually kill them properly. So you will need to also, you know, slow them and have a stack that's big enough to be one-shotting or close to one-shotting. And there's also there's also the poison ability that they have. So they don't have the revenge that Haspids do, but they do have poison, which can also mess you up. All right, so Power Liches, another tier 5 unit, upgraded tier 5. The reason that I have them on the easier lists as opposed to all the other shooters is I feel that they're the easiest of the shooters to deal with, because when you close the gap, they just don't do that much damage with melee, and they don't have the highest HP or the highest stats, so they're relatively easy to kill. They're susceptible to hit and runs, and if you have tactics and a decent enough power stack that outspeeds them, and you just close the gap right away, you will be doing them with relatively few losses, unlike something like Titans or Enchanters that have no melee penalty that can still do quite a bit of damage even if you close the gap. So the way to do them is usually, like I already said, tactics, and to try to outspeed them either by having faster units like Angels, Dragons, Wyvern Monarchs, and perhaps using slow or haste to be able to close the gap as quickly as possible and let them get as few shots at you as possible. And certainly avoiding the Death Cloud attack as well. Alright, next I'm going to rank Ifrit, the regular Ifrit, Champions, and Nyx Warriors. So now we're starting to get into units that are, I would say, relatively easy to deal with, but these can still be troublesome for certain reasons. So Ifrit Sultans, or regular Ifrit, I mean, they are still speed 9, and they're still pretty strong as far as tier 6 units go. Their numbers are going to be relatively large. So again, the way you want to fight these is mass slow, try to kite them around and isolate the stacks. But of course, if there is an upgraded stack of Ifrit Sultans and you have a ranged stack to try to deal with them without tactics, then that can be troublesome because they can just close the gap on you, right? But definitely much easier than the upgraded Ifrit. So we had that one at the top of the hard break tier list. These are, kind of here in the middle-ish of the easy break tier list. All right, champions are not too bad. They are they can be challenging if you don't have a large army, because they are quite tanky, and they have good stats, and they have speed 9, and they also have that jousting ability that increases their damage through distance. So you, once again, want to use slow for these and try to isolate them and have a large enough power stack that can pick off the stacks one by one without getting hit. Nyx Warriors, kind of the same thing, mass slow and try to isolate, pick off the stacks one by one. The problem with Nyx Warriors is their ability. They reduce your attack of whatever is fighting them by 60%. So you're going to be doing way less damage to these guys than you think. And for that reason, you need to be pretty intelligent about taking retaliation from them, kiting them around and isolating the stacks one by one, because you will usually need, even if you have like 30 Wyvern or something like that, you will usually need to hit the stacks twice rather than once, like with something like Scorpicors or Wyvern Monarchs, because you will just be doing much less damage. So as long as you keep that in mind, you should be okay. But yeah, they can certainly be troublesome if you don't have that large of an army. Alright, so next we're going to have Minotaur Kings, Behemoths, the regular Behemoths, and Giants. So Minotaur Kings, another tier 5 unit, upgraded tier 5. The problem with these guys is that they're always going to have good morale. So even if you have things like Pendant of Downfall, all of the anti-morale artifacts, you will still not reduce their morale. They're still going to have +1 morale. And the only thing that will reduce their morale is Spirit of Oppression. So if you can have that against them, that's going to be good. But their speed is also speed 8. So more likely than not, you want to have mass slow, and there's going to be large numbers of them. You're likely going to be facing close to 100 of them. And the other thing about Minotaurs is that they hit really hard. So they're kind of like a glass cannon. Not as much as a genie. Genie are the most glass cannon of all the tier 5 units, but Minotaurs are kind of close behind. Their HP is 50 as opposed to the Master Genie's 40. But and their damage is the damage spread is kind of high. I believe it's from 12 to 20, but they can certainly hit pretty hard, and especially if they morale, that can definitely be a bit challenging to deal with. So you're just gonna have to try to play around that, usually using mass slow, and try to pick off the stacks one by one. Definitely want to have a strong enough stack to be able to one-shot them, but the good news is it's relatively easy to one-shot them because they are not that great in terms of tanking. Their health is not that high. All right, next we have the Gray Bears and the Giants. The problem with these two is that their AI value is quite low, and while they are relatively easy to kill, their stats, they're pretty squishy as far as tier 7 units go. But the problem with them is that you're going to be facing large numbers of them. It's not uncommon to have like 35 giants or 35 brown bears that you have to fight. So you will need a sizable army to defeat that. And what would really make these difficult is an upgraded stack. Actually, for giants more so than the bears. The bears, are still relatively okay. But if the giants have a upgraded stack, you have to deal with titans, and that kind of changes the entire battle. It goes from being easily slowable and kiteable to, oh my god, what the hell do I do? I actually had a game where I had to face 35 giants, or 36 actually, with an upgraded stack, and they split into 5 stacks. So I actually had 7 titans. So imagine you have a break of basically half of the titans. If you had a titans break, there would be about 14 of them. Like, I think 16 is the maximum potentially. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it's a little bit more. But imagine facing half of the Titans break, but on top of that, you also have 28 giants to deal with, And, when there is an upgraded stack like that and they can shoot, and you try to stay back, like if you think that you can kind of outsmart them and stay back to get the giants to come forward so you can isolate those and, close the gap with a Titan stack, they could actually go back and protect the Titan stack and wait until that kind of shoots you down. So, for that reason, it can definitely be really annoying to deal with. So as far as both the giants and the brown bears go, you usually do want to slow them. The good news about them, they're not that fast. Speed 6 for the bears, speed 7 for the giants. And you will want to slow them and, again, pick off the stacks one by one. Usually not too difficult to do because both are relatively squishy. A stack of somewhere around, 25 to 30 wyvern should be able to deal with these with no problem, unless there are upgraded stacks that mess up your plans. All right, next, now we're kind of getting into ones that are, pretty easy, I would say. So next we're going to rank Chaos Hydras and Naga Queens. Pretty easily slowable, so they both have relatively high values, so you will be facing, I think Naga Queens may have the highest value out of the tier 6 units, or, it may be the Dread Knights, I'm not quite sure about that, but the point is that you're going to be facing usually pretty low numbers of them, and the Chaos Hydras as well. You're not going to be facing too many of them. The problem with these two is that they do have that no retaliation ability, so you're going to want to avoid getting hit by them, because if they do hit you, you're just not dealing any damage back. And the Hydras also have that multi-directional attack, so you got to be careful about that. But usually it's not a problem if you just slow them. It reduces their speed. They're both speed 7, reduces their speed to 4, and then you just kite them around and try to avoid getting hit and pick them off one by one with taking retaliation if you are able to. So usually doing that, you will be able to deal with them more or less comfortably. Okay, next we are going to have the regular Nyx, unicorns, regular unicorns, Psychic Elementals, and Pit Lords. So all of these are relatively easy. The reason that I have them here as opposed to the next couple of tiers is because of their abilities. So most of the time, against all of these, you basically just want to use slow and, proper kiting, try to isolate the stacks. The Nyx also have an ability to lower the attack of something or whatever they're fighting, but as opposed to Nyx Warriors, they only lower it by 30%, so relatively manageable. Unicorns, the reason I have them here is because they also have Blind and the Magic Resist Aura, so those things can mess you up, but usually relatively easy to deal with. They have 20 less HP than the War Unicorns, and their speed is 7 as opposed to 9, so they are usually not that bad. The Psychic Elementals are slowable, not like the Magic Elementals, but if there's an upgraded stack, a stack of Magic Elementals, that can mess up your plans just a little bit. However, in most cases you can deal with them. The only problem with them that you have to watch out for is the fact that they have no retaliation. So they will attack your power stack, as opposed to some other stacks that don't have the no retaliation ability. They will likely be afraid of attacking, something like 10 Angels or 30 Wyvern, right? But these guys will not be because, they get no retaliation. So like the Naga Queens and Hydras will attack your power stack because they're not afraid of retaliation. But, usually what you want to do against these is just mass slow them and, try to kite them around. Once again, the good news about these is they're not that strong as far as tier 6 units go. So you will be able to one-shot them in most cases with, again, a stack of like 25 to 30 Wyvern or 6, 7, 8 Angels, something like that. So once again, you just slow them, try to kite them around, keep the rest of the stacks busy while you pick them off one by one. Alright, as far as the Pit Lords go, the last tier 5 unit on the list, they are relatively easy. The only thing that you have to watch out for is their summoning ability. So usually, once again, you have to mass slow them. And actually, all of these and the ones above can even be dealt with without mass slow. But mass slow certainly makes the fight a lot easier. And in a lot of cases, that's what you're going to be doing when you're going to be breaking. You're going to be looking for an easily slowable break. You're going to be looking for a hero that will get Earth Magic and have mass slow. Because in most cases, that's just going to allow you to do the break with no losses. So yeah, as far as the Pit Lords go, you just have to watch out for the summoning ability. Try to let them summon as little as possible. Remember the stacks that summoned and don't kill those. Kill the stacks that haven't summoned. And if you can, maybe leave stacks of like 1 or 2 alive so that if they do summon, then, they summon fewer demons, because obviously the amount that they summon depends on their numbers as well. So, but as long as you can kind of play around that, they are a relatively easy break. Alright, so next we are going to have the unupgraded tier 6 units, like the Cavaliers, the Wyvern, the Manticores, and the Black Knights. So these are some of the easiest breaks, easily slowable, and even if you don't slow them, their speed is not great. They all have speed 7. So even if you don't have mass slow, you can deal with these in a lot of cases by kiting them, by, feeding some 1 stacks to them to try to get some of the stacks to turn around so you can kind of isolate the other stacks and, manage that fight. Of course, with mass slow, it's going to be a lot easier, but you will be relatively okay against these. This is pretty much what you want to see. These 3 tiers, B, A, and S that we're going to talk about in a second are pretty much what you want to see for your break, and you're pretty happy with these. So as far as the champions go, they're probably the worst out of these because they are the strongest. They have, Cavaliers, the unupgraded champions. They have high HP, they have good stats, so that's why they're kind of at the bottom of the, of this tier. Wyvern and Manticores, they're both pretty weak as far as tier 6 units go. Their HP is pretty low, their stats are not that great. The only problem with these two is if there's an upgraded stack, like a Scorpicore stack that can proc Paralysis, or a Wyvern Monarch stack that can proc the poison, that can be a little bit nasty. But overall, not that bad even in those cases. And the Black Knights, they're actually strong. They do have high HP and good stats, but the reason that I have them, I think they're the easiest out of this tier because you don't have to worry about morale with them since they're undead. So the fight is much more predictable. With any of these, like let's say you're doing it without mass slow and you don't have any anti-morale artifacts, if they morale into you, that can be much more difficult. So whenever you can help it, when you're fighting against something that can morale, you want to have an anti-morale artifact, or like the Spirit of Oppression, the Pennant of Downfall, something like that, because morale can always kind of throw a wrench into your plans. So I would say fighting something like Black Knights when you don't have to worry about morale in any case, or even like Psychic Elementals, for example, is always good, because that's not going to mess up your plans. All right, and the last two, pretty much the easiest breaks, we're going to have the regular Hydras and regular Nagas. So these are definitely the easiest. I, don't think anybody will argue with that because, for one, they are slow. So they both do have that no retaliation ability, so that can be a little bit nasty if they morale into you and they actually, hit your power stacks, because they're not going to be afraid of your power stacks. But their speed is only 5, so even if you don't have mass slow, these will be the easiest out of everything to deal with without mass slow. So again, usually you can kite them around, pick off the stacks one by one, etc. Same thing. Of course, mass slow does make it easier. Like I said before, you do want to have mass slow for most of these, if not all of them. But these, if you somehow don't get Earth Magic, you can still manage. Alright guys, well that's it for the easy break tier list. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. Do let me know in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my placement. And yeah, I will be back with another video soon. So thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.